Hello grapplers and welcome to a new video. A situation happened in the last Red Bull Kumite that made me think about a lot of things, specifically rules. How do they apply? What is good? What is bad? If you're unaware or maybe you didn't watch the Red Bull Kumite, Salty Kid was doing a bit where he was just giving his card to the person he fought. Everything cool. People were just following the beat, having fun. He did it to Blast after winning 3-0.
To know that, Blast. That's for when you pay taxes.
Look at him. He even said it.
Yeah,
He
that's
said,
for
"What's
when
this?"
you have a
It is important to mention that Blast, I don't know what language was Salty King speaking to Blast, but Blast is not necessarily fluent in English, which is the language I'm going to assume they were talking. Everything cool so far, but Blast's dad approached, he took the card,
He looked at his father like, "This guy's
and he was very angry about this.
Yeah.
He's like, "Hey, what the hell is this crap?" Hit my brother whole lot.
This is not necessarily a bad thing. It was just a bit. But it made me think about what happens when you do something in a tournament, the other person is not following you. This happened in Street Fighter 5, and remember the teabags in Street Fighter 5? Well,
And that is gonna be that.
a lot of people thought teabags were very disrespectful back then. Were you affected or not by a teabag? It was not necessarily the conversation. The conversation was, should you do them? You see them laughing, but I'm not really sure this was a laughing matter. You have all things like this one, which is super common. The beef that Wolfram had with K-Rad. Pretty famous during the second year of Street Fighter 6. Clearly, they had a really close conversation. The classic handshake.
His chair and has the biggest grin on his face, and he cannot wait for the handshake.
This is also a bit very similar to what Salty Kid was doing. Just a fun thing between two players. However, the biggest difference between this and the card is that these two are in on the beat. How about this teabag?
Oh, dude doesn't even care. Woo.
And then Knuckle Dude took the win.
Yeah, that's gonna do it.
But for a second, they were just playing, having fun. All of these different situations showcase that anything can happen between two people playing fighting games. Now, what is allowed? That is the question. Is it fine for you to throw a jersey? It is incorrect for you to give your card as a beat. What if someone is not affected by teabags? What happens if both of them just teabag at the same time? It is not that common in Street Fighter 6, but in Street Fighter 5 it was. It was so common to the point that actually Capcom gave a special taunt to Dan that was just done by pressing down. Other sports are more well known, I guess, more established, like football or soccer for some of you. There have been situations where things go over the line and someone has to do something. This is basically the quality of a VHS. Probably some of you don't have no idea what that is. It's a very old technology. This was in 1989 in the match between Chile and Brazil. And you'll see that good old Chilean player Patricio Yañez is looking here at the referee, and you might not catch it, but he goes for a very specific area of his body and shakes it. Is this allowed? Obviously not. Football is very specific with their rules, and this also happens in other sports like tennis.
Have you given me a warning yet?
Have you given me a warning yet? Because in tennis you can get warnings.
Have you given it to me?
Not yet? Is this a good behavior? And these are established sports. They have their own rules. This is the ATP rulebook of 2024. You'll see that this is pretty freaking extensive. You even have things like this. Look at this. Bleeding penalty. What happens if someone vomits? Same thing applies to football. The number situation. What happens if the number 1 is used? It should be used by the goalkeeper. You have the colors, badges, equipment. What happens to if you get a yellow card, a red card? And this doesn't mean that our sports don't have them. You have that here that Capcom actually has a section of the rules, section 9 for the code of conduct in CPT tournaments. And you have the things that you expect. Harassment is prohibited, sexual images, insults, etc. Those are prohibited. And they have one that is something I'm going to highlight very specifically, the conduct that in the sole judgment of Capcom evokes or appears to evoke a negative impression of the Street Fighter community or Capcom. Very interesting to consider this for their code of conduct. So they have a lot of things, but I don't know if anyone conduct in a fight has ever been given a warning or something. That doesn't mean Capcom has never taken action. This was a ban that occurred during my time competing in Street Fighter V. In fact, I was there when this happened, and this hasn't changed to my knowledge. He's still banned from the CPT tournaments. And other players like Infiltration, remember this? And even other tournaments who don't necessarily, they follow in a way the CPT rules, but they also have their own rules, have also banned people at some point. You'll see that Leah Guilty Hayes was banned from tournaments from Big E Gaming. The same person who was doing the teabag with Knuckle doing one of the previous videos I showed. And even Capcom has recognized at some point that players like Zero Blast has shown remorse, very interesting the way they phrase this, for their inappropriate behavior, therefore unbanned. What is this all about? What is the point of this? I think there's a lack of consistency in the rules we have so far for fighting games. I don't know if people would be happy if we go to the extremes of having something like the rules I showed for football, tennis, and other sports. But I do feel in order for us to mature as a real sport in the future, some things need to be applied more consistently and with a lot more effort from the developers specifically, because at the end of the day, this is something they have to pursue. If something happens within a tournament of the Capcom Cup in this case, they need to take notice and do something about them. Let me remember you guys that, for example, again, football players have the common courtesy of exchanging jerseys at the end of the match. So there are things where you can friendly do something to the opponent win or lose, and that doesn't fall within some law within the rule set. All of this conversation is to keep the fair game, to keep a game entertaining for everyone, for the viewer, for the players, the commentators, and also the developers, the people behind the game. The fighting game community, it is still pretty young. It is still pretty naive in some ways. So maybe at some point we need to just sit down and create a code of conduct that could be applied to maybe generally to every single tournament in a way. What is your opinion? Is there something like if someone gives you a card when they take the win against you, is that a good thing? What about teabags? What about key charges in Tekken? What about other means of playing within the game and outside the game? Where's the line? What is the extreme? As always, if you really like this video, please subscribe. Go to the Siberia Live on Twitch for more videos. Remember to hydrate, keep playing grapplers, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.